In Iraq, the top topic on Capitol Hill this weekend. Yesterday, the Senate voting not to debate a resolution critical of the president's troop surge plan. That same measure did pass the House just one day before. So now that the Senate's spoken, what is the House going to do now, and what's next? Congressman Jim Marshall is a Democrat from Georgia, member of the Armed Services Committee. Congressman McCaul is a Republican from Texas and a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday.
Happy to be with you.
Let me first start with you, Congressman McCaul. You know, Chris Wallace just a minute ago in our interview predicted we're heading toward what could be a constitutional crisis as the president's powers butt up with Congress. Do you think that's a possibility?
If I could first, I want to commend my friend Jim Marshall for voting against the resolution. I thought that was a real profile and courage to stand up to his party and do the right thing. To answer your question, obviously the Constitution provides for separation of powers. The Constitution provides the president is the commander-in-chief. It is his job to conduct war. It is the job of the Congress to provide oversight and funding. If the Congress provides oversight in this case, as we are, and decide that funding should be cut, that's obviously an issue. I hope that's a road we don't go down with respect to the Iraq war. I think it would be a terrible mistake for this country and for the world.
Jim, why did you buck your party? That's a good point.
Well, Congress knows that it cannot manage a war, let alone micromanage one, and this is basically micromanagement. It's commenting only on a troop surge. And the comment, when you say that you disapprove, is something that can discourage the very soldiers that are involved in executing the surge. So that's a no-brainer for me. I described it as mid-play booing just because you don't like the coach's call. You're not against the team and you don't want to discourage the team, but you're sitting there in the stands booing, and I thought that was inappropriate.
Well, then, you know, some of your fellow Democrats certainly will take issue with that. What about their criticism of the war and what's going on and their criticism of your vote?
Well, there are legitimate differences of opinion among the leadership in Washington concerning what's the best way forward in Iraq and globally where national security is concerned. And it's very appropriate in a democracy that we debate those things. I agree with Mike that Congress ought not to get down into the weeds and try and manage efforts like this. Whatever the security effort might be, it's got to be left to the administration. But as far as broad brush, moving things in one direction or another direction, that's very appropriate for Congress to be talking about and trying to do as well.
Well, Mike, you talk about, Jim talks about a broad brush. What is your suggestion for what's next? Do you agree with potentially limiting the role of some of the troops as some of the Democrats are talking about now?
Well, again, I think we're going to provide oversight on foreign affairs, on armed services, where Jim serves. Jim and I have been over to Iraq together. We're going to be looking at what's going on over there, obviously, but again, I think going back to this resolution, at the same time, General Petraeus is unanimously confirmed by the Senate for the Congress to condemn his plan for victory is a terrible mistake, sends a terrible message to our troops serving over there, and really emboldens the enemy and sends a really bad message to the terrorists that they can win. I recently met with the ambassadors from Jordan, from Saudi Arabia and Egypt, and they told us a U.S. withdrawal from the region would be catastrophic, as not only would they come after us, but pointing at me, they said they will come after you. And I think that's an important message for the United States, that we can't afford for these people to come after us.
And you believe this, even the fact that this was non-binding and basically just symbolic?
Well, it has no legal force and effect, but it does send, again, a terrible message to the world, to our enemies, that we don't have the will to finish the job. And that all they need to do is wait it out. So again, it emboldens the enemy. We had so many emails from the troops overseas who were outraged by what the Congress was doing in terms of condemning the very mission that they are now implementing in Iraq. I think it was a terrible mistake for the Congress.
And very briefly, Jim Marshall, last word. What should happen next?
Well, there's no doubt about it. We are going to continue to debate this. Soldiers are going to see resolutions, they'll see some laws passed, that sort of thing. And as I said when I commented on this non-binding anti-surge resolution that I voted against, don't get discouraged by that. Soldiers shouldn't worry about that. Let the leadership in Washington figure out what your duty is, how we move forward with regard to Iraq and generally with regard to our global security challenges, and just execute your duty. That's something you'll look back on with pride. Not your job to figure out what needs to be done, your job to do it.
All right, Jim Marshall, Democrat of Georgia, Mike McCaul, Republican of Texas. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning.
Happy to be here.